Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning and welcome to a Thursday edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It's a live edition and we'd love to get your thoughts on the 2024 SEC schedule that's come out. Gators play tomorrow. They're already in Omaha. They play tomorrow night, 7 o'clock against the Virginia Cavaliers. A lot to talk about today with our college football analyst, Brent Beaird. Let's go straight to the Titan More hotline. Good morning, Brent. How you doing?
Well, Shane, I'm doing well. Looking forward to the baseball. That should be exciting. I know on your end there's a little golf tournament this weekend that will be exciting too, hopefully. And look, the two things that get fans most excited during the off season would be scheduling and expansion. So we didn't have expansion, but we have a lot to talk about with the reveal of the 2024 football season.
Yes, we do. Before we get started, Andy says, Shane, do you know that your guy, Max Homa, has a course record of 61 where they're playing at the LA Country Club? He did that in college. I don't know if the course was set up like that, but yeah, he's a very good player. Very good player. So, Brent, let's just be generic here. And what stood out the most to you when they released that schedule last night?
Oh, I think the Georgia and Alabama would be one of the first things that got my attention, and obviously everybody wants to see Texas A&M. That will be at Texas A&M to have that rivalry renewed. Now, I wouldn't at all be surprised if Texas A&M will start the season next year. They have talked about that kind of behind the scenes, and we've heard that over the last few months. So that, not saying it's going to happen, but I won't be surprised if it's not a headliner game early on. Now, again, we need to remember this was only for 1 year in 2024. I know some schools will say, well, we got a really tough schedule, others didn't. I get all that. But frankly, I think the SEC, Shane, overall did a good job with this. And it's going to be really fascinating to see where we go for 25 and 26.
Well, I will say this. The fans who bitch and complain about the directional schools or the so-called cupcakes, well, for the Gator Nation in 2024, you have 11 Power 5 programs on your schedule.
Yes.
And then add Samford, who's usually a pretty good program. So it ain't going to be a cakewalk. Joseph says he thinks Tennessee has the easiest schedule in his opinion. Brent, who do you think, just glancing at it briefly, and we're talking just within the conference, because if you look at LSU in 2024, I think not only their SEC schedule, but they play Southern Cal and Vegas and some other stuff. But who do you think has the most difficult, just looking at it today, the most difficult schedule in conference?
This is going to sound unusual, but I'm going to say Arkansas, because they usually end up, and they did last year, with an absolutely brutal schedule. But this year, that's a bit different, and that's fortunate for them. They've only got 3 true road games. They don't play Alabama for the first time since 1992 when they broke into divisions. And they added Arkansas and South Carolina. And they also don't go to Georgia or Gainesville. So I will say for Arkansas, that will be interesting to see how they do with that. And again, we got to remember for 2024 there will be no divisions. This is the last year for divisions in the SEC, and some of these games that you have seen for years, like Alabama and Ole Miss, this is the first time since 1991 Alabama will not play Ole Miss. So we've got some of that in the schedules, and part of that comes out because we no longer have divisions, or at least, Shane, let me say, we're still thinking in terms of divisions, and next year that will have to change.
Yeah, well, let's just start down at the bottom here and go our opposite direction we normally go with the Aggies.
Sure.
I'm looking at their schedule, and what's interesting is for A&M in 2024, they don't play Georgia, they don't play Alabama, they don't play Tennessee, they don't play Ole Miss, and they don't play Oklahoma.
Yeah, absolutely. Now they do have Arkansas, LSU, Missouri, and Texas, as we just mentioned, at home. And Shane brings up a good point. All the attention is on A&M and Texas, but when you look at the rest of the schedule, it's not as rough as it used to be. And again, they go to Auburn, they come to Gainesville, which will be a good game, Mississippi State, and South Carolina. So I would say, Shane, for your question a few minutes ago, probably Arkansas and A&M. I don't know if got off the lightest is what I want to say, but that's pretty close to it.
Yeah, everybody on here is commenting on A&M and Georgia not playing again. It really is remarkable that A&M. When did they come into the league, Brent?
Yeah, well, the mid 2010s when we added Missouri and A&M, and to Shane's point is Georgia's never played at A&M during that time. Now I wonder if that will be corrected in 25 or 26. But yeah, that amazing streak still continues.
Yeah, I think they've only played them once, and I think that was in Athens. So very strange, very strange. What's going on with South Carolina? What do you think about their schedule?
South Carolina has got home games with LSU, Ole Miss, Missouri, and A&M. That's not a bad schedule, but they are on the road with, and this is pretty tough, Bama, Kentucky, and Oklahoma are there. Obviously, Shane Beamer has ties to Oklahoma, so that will be interesting. Although Oklahoma's still got better talent, I believe, along that line too. So in South Carolina, LSU will be a good game too. They do have Vanderbilt, so that will certainly help them as the schedule goes along.
The Ole Miss Rebels, they picked up a wide receiver in the transfer portal because that's pretty much what they do week in and week out.
Yeah.
But as you stated, Ole Miss will not be playing Alabama, and that's just going to be very strange for those people that represent those two schools.
It really will. Now, Oklahoma comes to Oxford. Can you imagine the attention that's going to get, Shane? Mississippi State, of course, with the Egg Bowl, and they've got Kentucky and they got Georgia. So if you're a Rebel fan, you've got Georgia and Oklahoma coming to your place. That means a lot. Away, the Arkansas-Ole Miss rivalry stays intact. Ole Miss will be at Florida, so that would be interesting to have, we think, Lane Kiffin on the field. The LSU rivalry stays intact, and then they play South Carolina. So that is interesting. I had a real quick note here that, and this is a good point. Ole Miss is known with Lane Kiffin for being a throw it all over the field, but they have frankly been one of the better running teams under Lane Kiffin too. They averaged 256 yards a game last year, which is among the leaders. So Shane loves to run the ball more than people think he does, Shane.
Yeah, for sure. No question. Oklahoma, boy, I tell you what, I think they the league stuck it to Oklahoma with their schedule.
Bama, South Carolina, Tennessee, and excuse me, I got a little water down my throat, and Texas. So that's tough. And of course, the Texas game is in Dallas. Oklahoma on the road at Auburn. That'll be an interesting game. LSU, Ole Miss, and Missouri. So it is. That is a tough schedule, but Shane, I can tell you this: no one's going to be crying for Oklahoma or Texas coming into the league in tough schedules, are they?
No, not at all. And it's going to be interesting to see with them coming into the league. You know, they play the Red River rivalry or shootout, whatever it's called, in the Cotton Bowl. Now we have the only two off-campus facilities, games being played within the SEC. So are Oklahoma and Texas going to start bitching about recruiting as Kirby does? It'll be interesting to see. What do you think, Brent?
It will. Yeah, it will be. I've never heard that being a real issue with that game. They've never really complained about it that much. Will that start is a good question. So, but it's just it's a humongous game to say the least. And look, we are, and I've got Oklahoma and Texas in my notes for the first time. So that's something that we're going to have to start doing as the weeks go along, and start really taking a hard look at what Oklahoma and Texas are doing, simply because of them joining the schedule. Now, some folks may be wondering why Alabama and Texas aren't playing in 24. That's because they played last year in Austin, and this coming season they'll be playing in Tuscaloosa. So the league didn't really necessarily want them, I'm guessing, playing for 3 years in a row.
Yeah, that's probably true. Anything stand out of the Missouri schedule?
Home is Arkansas, Auburn, Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt. So Arkansas, Auburn, and Oklahoma will certainly help bring some people there. They've got some tough away games with Alabama, Mississippi State, South Carolina, and A&M. Missouri is kind of what I always call one of these 50-50 games, and Florida's got them this year. It's a reality of Missouri's not an elite team. I'm not saying they couldn't be. Eli Drinkwitz certainly stirs the pot every now and then, but they're a pretty good football team, and you've got to be careful with them when they come in and not treat them like a lesser team. So that's a pretty good schedule with Missouri. And by the way, we'll get into this later, but their defense much improved last year, and they're trying to do the same this year.
At Chris Storing Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Storing Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Speaking with Brent Beaird, our college football analyst on the Titan Tomorrow hotline. Brent, before we move on to Mississippi State, John has a question. He says, Brent, looking at Georgia and Alabama's schedules, what are the chances we see a 2-loss SEC champion?
Oh, I think that day might be coming. It would be very unusual, but with the playoff and with Oklahoma and Texas joining the league, I think pretty much anything is possible at this point. I mean, Bama again. They go to Oklahoma, they go to LSU, they go to Tennessee, and then Georgia's schedule next year is much more difficult than it is this year. But Georgia goes to Bama, Kentucky, Ole Miss, and they go to Texas. Look, that's two pretty good games, Alabama and Georgia and Texas. So no, I think that's a legitimate question. We haven't seen it so far, but as we know, things really change, and I would say that might be very possible.
Yeah, John brings up a good point here, referring to how Georgia has not played A&M but once since they've come to the league. I didn't realize this, but we've only played Auburn twice in the last 17 years, and they're the closest SEC opponent to Gainesville.
Right.
That makes absolutely no sense to me.
But I remember, and I know you do too, particularly a time where Terry Bowden was coaching them, and then obviously that was, and then you had Pat Dye before then. Shane, it seemed like Auburn and Florida basically played every year, and they came close to that. So I would agree with that very much. I mean, I remember Bowden coming down here and getting a couple wins, but that is correct. They've rarely played over the last decade or so.
Yeah, I played them all 3 years. I was here.
Yeah,
so.
I thought you did. Yeah.
Yep. And we were 3-0, by the way. I had to throw that in there. Mississippi State. Now, I'm kind of glad because in 2024 we played both my home state schools, Mississippi State and Ole Miss.
Right.
But boy, I think Mississippi State. I don't say they caught a break, but it's going to be really weird for the folks that ring the cowbells. No LSU and no Alabama.
That's
I don't
right.
know when. I mean those. I mean, Mississippi State is as close as any schools in the SEC. Alabama and Mississippi State. I mean, they're like an hour apart.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be playing. And then LSU, Mississippi State, that's been going on for years. So that's going to be very strange for Mississippi State folks.
Yeah, it really will. I mean, as a matter of fact, Alabama is not playing either one of the Mississippi schools, and that's very unusual. And you're right about Starkville and Tuscaloosa are like 82 miles away from each other. But as far as Mississippi State is now, again, the thing that's probably going to help Florida, at least we think he will, although I think he's got 2 more years of eligibility, is I'm thinking if Will Rogers has a pretty good year this year, Shane, he may be going to the NFL. So when they come in 24, that would help Florida because they would be breaking in a new quarterback. But at that point, home games, Arkansas, Florida, Missouri A&M, and away, say it plays Georgia, obviously Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Texas. My stars, think about that, Shane. You're on the road, and Ole Miss is bad enough, but you've got Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas on the road. What about that?
Yeah, that's pretty damn hard.
It really is.
Text on the Titanamar text line from Josh in Mississippi says, QB, I wanted to let you and the Gator fans know that one of the preferred walk-on QBs at UF is from Omaha, Nebraska, Parker Lease. I don't know if I pronounced his name right. Also, his family owns the Drover Steakhouse there in Omaha for the last 50 years. Let's keep it packed during the College World Series. Well, there you go. I appreciate the text and the nugget from Josh about a Gator football player's parents owning a steakhouse. Maybe they'll hook up some of the Gator faithful there when they roll into Omaha. Brent, the Kentucky Wildcats, what do you think about their schedule?
Kentucky has got Auburn, Georgia, South Carolina, Vanderbilt at home. That's a nice home schedule. And they go to Florida, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Texas. So if you're Kentucky, you keep Georgia on the schedule, and then you add Tennessee. Well, you don't add Tennessee, but then you've got Texas. So that's pretty tough, frankly, for them. It'll be interesting to see what Devin Leary does and this year and how that goes for them. But still, Kentucky's able to win 7, 8, maybe 9 games every now and then. And as long as Stoops does that, they'll have a statue of him when it's over, Shane.
Yeah, he's the all-time winningest coach there and will continue to do a great job. Another text on the Titanamar text line from William. It's a pretty good one here. I'm going to paraphrase it. He's basically saying, with all the fans that have been bitching and complaining about playing the cupcake schools, now with the way these schedules have come out, and with, say, the Gators playing 11 Power 5 schools, do you think ticket prices will go up? Have you heard anything about that, Brent? Because
I haven't. But look, anytime you bring in, you can bet your bottom dollar that, particularly when Oklahoma and Texas come to your school, that those tickets are going to be premium to get. So my guess to that would be yes. And frankly, I hate to say that because I know how much tickets are and what fans will do. But I mean, look, just for instance here, Shane, can you imagine what Georgia and Alabama tickets and Texas at Texas A&M tickets are going to be next year?
Yeah, it's going to be nuts. Yeah, everybody here. I didn't realize this. Dan says they are remodeling our stadium in 2024. I'd heard about that. I didn't know that's when there's actually going to happen. So they're supposed to upgrade and get it going in 2024. So we'll see. I thought they were going to take out some seats and make it a little where you can freaking not spread out, but have a little more room. So anyway, Charlie says, Shane, when are the dates released for the 2024 season? Any ideas? I guess you're talking about when are they going to tell you when you're playing this team and all that kind of stuff? When's that?
Yeah, right. That's a good question. I mean, you've got to believe that's coming out. Well, let me say this. Probably some of that is going to be determined by television. Now, there are a lot of things that determine when you play. You've got the schools involved with this. You've got TV that's involved with this. And what I'm saying by that is, let's just say in 2024, the two games that I mentioned, TV is certainly going to have a hand in saying when they'd like those games to be played. And you get some of those bigger games decided, and then you've got kind of a domino effect. Now, they probably worked on this and got some quasi dates even now, but I would think that, and now the SEC Network was careful to say that they did not have they did not know when the dates would be added, but I've got to believe, this is June, that they would have something certainly by September, if not before then, because a lot of people need to plan things for 24, and that is a good question. So we'll be keeping tabs on that very closely.
Your thoughts on the Georgia schedule for 2024?
Well, as we mentioned, it's certainly harder than 23, and that would not take much, would it, Shane?
No.
The reality here is Georgia at home, Auburn, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and again, Bama on the road, and Georgia on the road at Alabama, Kentucky, Ole Miss, and Texas. Now, that's pretty tough, frankly, too. So 6 home games, 4 road games. They've got 2 neutral site games. People may forget this, but Georgia opens the season next year playing Clemson in Atlanta. So that certainly is an upgrade. Also, and obviously Florida here in Jacksonville. So Georgia's schedule next year is incredibly more attractive than it is this year.
Yes, for sure. We talked a little bit about the Gator schedule. Let's touch on it one more time. What do you think about it, Brent?
Well, it's tough. I don't think there's any doubt about that. What makes it tough to me, I'm glad they're playing, is they've got, obviously, the non-conference games. They've got one of the toughest non-conference games in the nation with Miami, Central Florida, and Florida State. Now at home, and this is a fairly attractive home schedule. I know it's not Alabama or Texas, but they've got Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, and A&M, and then Mississippi State and Starkville, Tennessee and Knoxville, and Texas and Austin. Now, I don't know how many Gator fans. I'm curious if you've had this chance. I don't know if you haven't gone to Austin to see a game. You owe it to yourself to do that at some point, and the same thing with Norman. Too. And by the way, Shane, as you know, our buddy Brady Ackerman lives in Austin, so maybe you and I can go next year, and we can have Brady treat us to dinner. How about that?
That's right. I tell you one thing, I do know this: when I'm in Austin for the game next year, I'm getting a picture with Bevo. I love that damn mascot.
Absolutely.
I love that mascot. That is a big animal for sure.
Yes.
Also touching on the Gators briefly, they got a couple of commits over the week, Brent.
They did, and I'm not real good in pronouncing this guy's name, but they got a guy from Germany of all places. I don't mean Germany like Germany, Texas, or whatever state that is, but he is 6'5", 334. We don't know a whole lot about him. He was looking at Auburn, Liberty, in South Carolina. So, and his name, and I'm guessing here, okay, Noel Portenjagen.
I like it. Sounded good.
Yeah. How about that? Is that good enough?
That's right.
Yeah. Because sooner or later you're going to be having to pronounce it too. You may just be calling him Noel.
Exactly.
Go with that. And then Mike Williams, 6'7", 320 from Baltimore. And look, my understanding is, and I think you hear the same thing I do, is their recruiting is going very well. Now they're on a lot of lists for some of the top guys. Now they haven't committed yet, but hopefully they will. But at this point, I still say that they're bringing in some guys to meet their needs, and I still think recruiting is pretty solid.
Before we move on to Auburn, Andy has a question brought to you by Meldon Law. It says, Brent, are you surprised that Billy Napier's not getting more of the very top recruits from the state of Florida?
Yeah, I was asked that question a few days ago, probably to a degree. Yes, I think that will eventually come as they solidify the program. I told somebody the other day, one of your greatest recruiting inducements is to win games.
Very true.
So as Shane said earlier a few weeks ago, an 8-4 would go a long way to do that this year, wouldn't it, Shane?
Yeah, no question about it. Auburn, I think the thing that jumps out to me is they will not be playing the LSU Tigers in 2024.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They haven't played that. That'll be the first time that they had not played LSU since 1991. They're also not playing Ole Miss for the first time, get this, Shane, since 1989. And even further, they're in a situation where it would be the first year they've not played Mississippi State since 1954.
Wow.
How about that?
That's crazy.
It is. So when you do away with divisions, that's what you've got. Now they do play Cal next year. I don't think Cal's is an elite team by any means, but and I believe that game's on the road, as a matter of fact. But for Auburn, again, you've got Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M, and then now the toughest thing for Auburn here is they're on the. But I mean, this happens every other year anyway. But they're at Alabama, they're at Georgia, they're on the road with Kentucky and Missouri. So yeah, that will be a pretty tough schedule for Hugh Freeze in his second year.
The Hogs, it seems like year in and year out, when you look at these rankings of the hardest schedules in America, Arkansas has been in the top 3 or 4 every year. I think they finally caught a little bit of a break. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's the easiest schedule Arkansas has had in years. You remember last year's schedule was just absolutely brutal, particularly in the conference, with how that shook out for them. LSU, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Texas. Now, I still think that Texas game is in Jerry's world. in Dallas. And then on the road, Auburn, Mississippi State, Missouri, and A&M. So only 3 true road games. They don't play Alabama, and they don't have to go to Georgia or Florida. So to your point, absolutely, it's the easiest schedule they've had in quite a while.
I mean, think about that. The SEC is going to have 3 neutral site games now.
Yeah,
Florida, Georgia,
right. Yes.
Texas OU, A&M, and Arkansas. So nobody else in America does that.
That's great. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yep. Alabama, what do you think about the schedule?
Well, I mean, obviously, the Georgia coming in, they wanted to make a splash with the schedule, and they did. That game will be very interesting to see where that's going to be on the schedule. Will that be a September game, or they wait and play that game a little bit later on? Auburn, Georgia, Missouri, and South Carolina. Pretty tough road schedule for Alabama, LSU, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. Now, Bama also goes to Wisconsin next year, which is something they rarely, that'd be the first time they've ever gone. So, and by the way, this is worth mentioning, in 2025, Alabama comes to Tallahassee to play Florida State.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, that's going to be very interesting too. You remember Bama played Florida State in 2007, but they played them in Jacksonville. Remember that, Shane?
I do, yeah.
That was Nick Saban's first year, as a matter of fact.
Charlie's saying, is Brent saying Arkansas to the SEC title game? No, I don't think Brent is saying that.
No, it's just an easier schedule is all we're saying.
Yeah. And Tony says he votes Georgia playing at Bama the week before the Florida-Georgia game. Yeah, I would agree with that one as well. Text on the Tatumar text line from George. He says, Brent, where do you stand right now the following year? Will they go to 9 SEC games?
Well, that's a question everybody wants to know, and it's a good question. Now, what Greg Sankey said was after they announced that they were going to stay with 8 and 24, he said, we will look at this again around this time next year. Well, I can tell you they're looking at it all the time as far as when they want to do it. So we don't know. It's possible. Number one, I do think they go to 9, but it's just a matter of time when they do it. I mean, what they want to do, or at least what they say is, again, I'll make this brief, but there are 2 things going on here. One is what they say, which is we want to get information from the playoffs and how the committee valued the strength of schedule. Well, that's what they're saying. Number 2, and this is the most important thing, this is what they're not saying is, if they go from 8 to 9, they want more money from ESPN. And ESPN's not obviously willing to do that yet. Now, will ESPN want to do that? Probably or possibly. But I think if ESPN had said, here's more money for having a 9th SEC game for the league, that they would have gone to 9 already. But that's the thing they're looking for, and that they're looking at right now is, when is ESPN going to do that? And again, to be brief here, we're all focused in on college football. What we forget sometimes, and someone reminded me of this the other day, is ESPN's not just dealing with college football. ESPN's dealing basically with everything. They're having a lot of cuts, unfortunately. A lot of their shows were going streaming only. You're going to deal with some of that. So, Shane, there's just a lot involved here before they go to 9. But I'll say this: I do think they'll go to 9 this decade. Now, when that will be, we just don't know.
do you think, because, Greg Sankey, when they were talking all about this at the SEC meetings, he made a statement, and I don't remember exactly how he phrased it, but it was something along the lines of, no team has won a national championship playing more than 8 conference games. Do you remember him saying something along those lines, Brent?
Yeah, Sankey, from what I understand, wants to go to 9. I'm sure he could really exert his influence. And again, what we've got to remember here is the people who make these decisions are the presidents and the chancellors. It's not the ADs and the coaches. I wish the ADs and the coaches made more of these decisions, but they don't. That's not saying they don't have input, but I do think Sankey, also in his comments, really wanted the league to get more aggressive, and what he meant by that would be when you go to 9, you are being more aggressive. But again, to your point, Shane, is the reality is you're taking a chance. Yes, that you may not get a champion out of that, but at the same time, or a national champion, but at the same time, what he's thinking is we still are going to get 3, maybe 4 teams in the expanded playoff. And if we do that, one of them gets hot, they win it, we'll be okay. So there's a lot of factors involved with this right now.
Yeah, the reason I brought that 8 game up is because maybe they want to see for 1 year still playing only 8 conference games, how many teams get into that playoff situation, and then see if they need to bump it up to 9 for a strength of schedule. Because if they get 4, think about it, if they get 3 or 4 of them in there with only an 8 game schedule, they may say, the hell with it, we're going to stick with it. So
they might. That's very true. Yes.
Ruzoka State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ogreinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. A few more minutes with Brent. Brent, give us some nuggets before we get you out of here, my man.
Well, let me also say that in 2024, this is worth going over again. In non-conference games, Alabama's at Wisconsin, Georgia and Clemson and Atlanta, as we mentioned. Florida plays Miami. Notre Dame plays Texas A&M, and LSU plays Southern Cal. Now, what also needs to be mentioned here next year, I want you to think about this in a minute, is now Texas comes into the league too, and they'll be considered obviously an SEC team next year. But one of the games I really wanted to look at here, and boy, this one is going to get a lot of attention because a lot of folks I don't think have thought about this game at this point either. But September 14th of next year, Texas goes to Michigan. How about that, Shane? That is now you talk about a game that's going to get attention. The way that Harbaugh has Michigan at this point, and the way they're ruling the Big Ten, that after all the games we just mentioned, man, that is a headliner to say the least, is it not?
Yeah, there's no question about that. Brent, good stuff as always. I got to ask you though, because it's a major championship being played this weekend. I know you don't follow golf that closely, but I love when Brent Beaird gives us picks.
McElroy good again. Can we go that right?
Yeah, he's a good player. He can't get over the hump right now.
Yeah, well, and that's going to be it. But still, he still makes a little bit of money, even though he's not over the hump, isn't he, Shane?
That's very true. Brent, good stuff, my man. Happy Father's Day to you this weekend.
You
and
too.
We'll talk to you next week.
Look forward to it, pal. Take care.
That's Brent Beaird. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. We're going to take a timeout, come back, get to more of these texts and Facebook Lives. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peaceland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte.
Campus USA Credit Union.
QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, and watch. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wibby, Realtor Caldwell Banker, MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Aver and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Hi, Steve Spurrier here. You know, making a reservation at my restaurant is easier than a Saturday afternoon homecoming game against Vandy. You don't have to call or email. Just go to spurriers.com, hit the reservation button, pick a date, number of guests, and a time. It's so simple, I can do it. In fact, I just did. Maybe I'll see you tonight.
Pro football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550.
Celebration Points, where the Gators go to celebrate, with premium brands like Regal Cinemas, Prime and Pearl, Dave & Buster's, Nike, Skechers, F45, and the HBC's restaurant Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, the #1 celebrity polished casual restaurant in America, hottest restaurant in Florida, in the heart of Gator Nation. That's Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We got a lot of text to get to here real quick. Dan has a question here. Wonder how they would slot the teams, early rematch or opposite sides. So SEC championship game would be rematch. Yeah, there are a lot of people talking about you could lose in an SEC championship game and then be the 4 or 5 seed and win the national title. There's no question about that. It's going to be just like basketball to a degree. This day in sports, it's brought to you by our good friends at Campus USA Credit Union. Put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union. This day in sports, in 1986, the U.S. Open at Shinnecock, Ray Floyd, his son played golf here, Robert Floyd, he was a Gator, wins his 4th and final major, 2 strokes ahead of Chip Beck and Lanny Watkins. That's This Day in Sports, brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. I got a text here on the Titan MR text line from Jack. Jack says, Shane, you have to be fired up to play both the Mississippi schools in 2024. Yeah, we mentioned that with Brent. No question about it. We go to Stark Vegas, and Rebs come to us here in Gainesville. So that will be a lot of fun for me. Get to see a lot of high school buddies at both of those games. Andy says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon Law, Shane, if you could play a round of golf with your dream foursome, who would be in that force? Oh boy, I got to think about that one. I will give you that tomorrow, Andy. That's a great question. Great question. JC would not be in it, trust me. But yeah, tomorrow's program, we'll have JC. Obviously, we'll talk about what happened in round 1 of the U.S. Open. By the way, our Peachland Dental picks, if you missed it, JC has Hovland, Morikawa, Tom Kim. Oh no, that's Buddy Martin's picks. JC has Adam Scott, Morikawa, John Rahm, Scotty Scheffler, Victor Hovland. I have Xander, Patrick Cantley, Koepka, Cam Smith, and Max Homa. We'll have Mike Morgan from the SEC Network, ESPN, tomorrow. He'll give us a little breakdown of the College World Series. Don't forget Gators first pitch scheduled for 7 o'clock tomorrow night, Eastern Standard Time. Never know the weather out there. Alan says, whatever became of David Duval. Had a great career, had a lot of injuries. He was a big, not skateboard, what is it? Where you do all the snowboarding and all that stuff. Had a lot of injuries, but he is on Golf Channel and also on NBC coverage. Does a good job, by the way. So that's what happened to David Duval. And y'all are funny, these comments. We got to go in more reading here. We're going to say Silverback Concrete is a family-led team of heavy concrete specialists that build commercial structures with unrivaled quality. So big day today, U.S. Open. I want to say first tee time is around noon our time, I believe. I got to check that real quick. Yeah, most of them are 9:45 local time out there, so 12:45 here. Going to be a very difficult golf course. Can't wait to watch it, and we'll see how it all works out. But it should be a lot of fun. Again, tomorrow's program, Mike Morgan and JC here live. Rick says deer herd has taken over West End golf. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of deer out there because it's like the woods nowadays. And Dan says small chance of rain in Omaha. So I hope you enjoyed today's program. We always love having Brent Beaird on, gives so much good information for our program. Tell your friends and family to follow our programs on all the different platforms out there. And y'all have a great day. Take care. See you tomorrow.